Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look at ways that we can help each other minister and be more effective. We have back with us again today, Jeff Nichols. Jeff, thank you so much for coming back to be with us today.
Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate the opportunity.
Jeff has been a pastor at the Donaldson Fellowship for over 20-something years, right, Jeff? And he is now the director of Child Evangelism Fellowship for the state of Tennessee. So he's involved in children's ministry. You've also done a lot of work in policies and procedures, and these days we think a lot about safety of children, and especially the nursery and all of that. And I know you've done a lot of work in that. So again, this is different depending upon the size of a church, but what are some of the key components to kind of having a safe church environment for kids and so forth?
That's a great question, and I think it's a very relevant question for today that I think 10 years ago, not as many churches were asking that question as are asking that question today. And even if churches were asking the question 10 years ago, they may have been asking the question for children's area and the student area. But now today, we're talking about church security across the board because of what has happened in churches and church violence and attacks. And so this has raised the level of attention that has been given to church security that extends also to the children's and student area. And so the great thing is there's not a big sales pitch that you have to give anymore for for us to start doing this. And because that is true among everybody everywhere, that even the non-church parent is very aware that they want their children to be in safe environments wherever they are. And so when they come to a church, they expect that in a church setting also. And so we have to. It's not a if or maybe anymore.
Yeah.
We have to provide safe and secure environments for children when they come into our church setting, no matter the size of the church anymore. Again, and it just looks differently. For different churches, it looks differently because of the setup of the facility itself is going to determine different security precautions. But I'd say that the main components of that need to be that everyone who is having access to children in any way need to be background screened and background checked as well as supervised. So that's the three components: is screening, background checks, and supervision. And when you think about opportunities for abuse, if we say it that way, you think of time and opportunity, and you think, is a child going to be abused on a Sunday morning setting with lots and lots of people around? There's a small chance. There's a chance that might happen, but a smaller chance. But we probably put the most security in place in those places.
Yeah.
But for a Wednesday night, children's ministry, Awana, whatever time that we're having on Wednesday night, we may drop our guard a little bit, but that's when we should have more security in place because time and opportunity there's not as many people around. There might be opportunity in the spaces in the facility to get a child off by themselves. And then if you keep moving across that spectrum and you move all the way over to other opportunities during the year for ministry with kids, camp settings and retreat settings are the one area that is the most dangerous, if you want to use that word, possibility and environment for children. And yet, when we're trying to recruit people to go to camp with our kids, we're so desperate, we'll take anybody.
Yeah.
Can anybody take off for a week to go to camp with it? Well, and you're looking around like, I can go. So it's just real easy. It's almost working in an inverse way on that spectrum, that the place and time of the week that is the most is the least dangerous is the one that we have the most security in place, and the one that's the most dangerous is the one that we get the most desperate, and we'll kind of drop our guard a little bit. Isn't that funny?
It is. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
But really, it's not rocket science, so to speak, and so churches really can protect themselves, it sounds like. So you think about supervision. Often that's the 2-adult rule,
Exactly.
which would be true with the nursery. It also would be true with a camp situation. You talked about the background check, which is just so critical because that's where sex offenders this is kind of the last territory they can go into, and so you've kind of taken that off the table for them. And then it sounds like we just have to think things through. So like if I'm taking a kid back home from camp or from a youth activity, I've got 2 adults, or I've planned that out so like as one person I'm not alone with a kid, and so to speak.
That's exactly right. And the training that you give to your volunteers puts a filter in their mind that they may not have ever had in their mind before. I remember a day when we had a children's ministry upstairs, and I was upstairs, and a kid had just come back to ask me a question or something. I realized I was alone upstairs with that kid, and just alarm bells started going off in my own head. Like, all right, let's go downstairs and let's talk about that downstairs. And we have to put that training in our volunteers just to think that way. You know, nothing is going on, but it's the appearance of something going on that we want to be above accusation in that way, that we're just putting filters in place that parents are going to know, man, this is a safe place.
Yes.
I mean, this is such a safe place that it may inconvenience you a little bit to sign the kids in and to have someone standing there at the door and have to check them out and all of that. Parents are more than willing to go through that.
Yes.
We've never had a complaint from parents that we've put those security measures in place. They really haven't.
So it's really an outreach tool because it's showing this is a safe place, even if somehow you had a church setting where everyone knew everyone, which sometimes folks say is the case. But then someone knows I can bring my neighbor's kids, or I could invite a friend from work, and they would be safe and they would feel like they were safe because you've got these procedures in hand, and it just helps us to be more effective in reaching our community.
That's exactly right. And if you think of it from the standpoint of the pedophile.
Yes.
If a pedophile moves around a lot, he is going to go to places with children. And if your church has a strong security presence and is very aware, he is not going to stay at your church. Mm-mm. He is going to find another church that someone may stand up in a Sunday morning service and say, can anybody watch the second graders this morning? He's like, yeah, I'd love to watch the second graders. I love kids. Well, yeah, he does love kids. And if hey, come on downstairs, I'll show you where, I mean, seriously? Mm-hmm. But we just can't. We're not in that day anymore. Mm-mm. This is not 1970.
No. You mentioned earlier most people, would not complain about that at this point, but it is something as our church we want all our churches to really think about, because usually a church never fully recovers from this kind of situation if they have an abuse situation happen on their site. So, we've got the Lord, and He can fix a lot of things, but it's hard to fix something like that in a community. So we just encourage folks to think this through and to be on top of it. Thank you for what you're doing and are going to do. And we encourage our folks listening to take advantage of these opportunities that we have. And we thank you, Jeff, for stopping by to be with us today.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks for the opportunity.